Good afternoon, and thank you everybody for your patience as we work through a couple matters this morning. And welcome to the Metro Board activities for November 20th, 2025. My name is Joe McAndrew, Chair of the Finance and Capital Committee. Before we begin, I'll turn the floor over to Jamie Johnson, Metro's Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, to provide us with today's safety contact.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are proud that Metro is a highly accessible transit system. Today's safety contact focuses on how Metro supports the safe use of Metrobus, Metrorail, and Metro Access for customers who use wheelchairs and other mobility devices. On Metrobus, every bus includes 2 securement areas, and operators are trained to assist customers upon request. Seatbelts and shoulder harnesses are available and recommended if a customer chooses to use them. On Metrorail, elevators provide the safest access for customers using mobility devices, and they include cameras and emergency intercoms that connect directly to Metro staff. Elevator availability information can be found on the elevator and escalator status page at wmata.com. Metro Access provides paratransit service to ensure customers who need extra support have access to the whole region by connecting them to the bus and the rail network. Vehicles have securement systems, and drivers receive specialized training to assist customers safely and respectfully. Across all 3 modes, Metro remains committed to ensuring safe, reliable, and dignified travel for customers who use mobility devices. Additional safety tips and more information can be found in the customer guide to Metrobus, Metrorail, and Metro Access for people with disabilities and senior citizens, which is available at wmata.com and in all accessible formats. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. As we are starting today's board activities with the Finance and Capital Committee, as this is our first meeting of the day, I'll ask the Chief Board of Affairs Officer, Jennifer Ellison, to call the roll.
Chair McAndrew?
Here.
Vice Chair Lowe?
Present.
Director Smedberg?
Present.
Alternate Director Rye?
Present.
Director Santos?
Present.
Director Alcorn? Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Perfect. Thank you. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move the approval of the agenda with one change: removal of the rail modernization update. We will bring this back another time. Are there any objections by the members of the committee to the amended agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. Now to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of our October 9th meeting before us for approval. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. Thank you. We have a semi-truncated, semi-full agenda ahead of us here, so we're going to go and get right to the items before us. The first item of the committee will be asked to authorize public hearings to facilitate joint development projects at our Braddock Road and North Bethesda metro stations, as well as authorize a joint development solicitation for Braddock Road. We'll forego the presentation and take questions from the board members and then vote. Next, after that, we'll get an update on the authority's financial results for the first quarter of the current fiscal year, which covers through September. That will set the stage for the next item, which is a preview of the general manager's proposed 2027 budget and fiscal year 2027 through 2032 capital improvement program, which will be officially presented in December. Again, on this item, we'll go ahead and forego the presentation for this one and take questions from the board. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Webster to maybe do just a very, very quick summary and/or Ms. Rubin on the joint development matters before us here today.
Sure. Good morning. So today we were seeking authorization on 2 items. One is to authorize a compact public hearing for Braddock Road, as well as a solicitation for Braddock Road, and then a compact public hearing for the North Bethesda garage. That is to allow us to go to the public, seek their feedback on the disposal of parking spaces in the garage to facilitate the joint development there.
Perfect. For our first item, are there any questions from committee members? Are there any questions before we go ahead and call the vote?
I'll just offer one comment, which is that I think you guys did a great job on this one. It's very creative. More like this, please.
Thank you.
+1. So the committee is being asked to approve 2 resolutions as part of this action. I'd like to move approval of both. Can I get a second from a committee member?
Second.
Seconded by Director Smedberg. Unless there's any additional discussion, I'll ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair McAndrew?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowe?
Aye.
Director Smedberg?
Aye.
Alternate Director Rye?
Aye.
Chair, the motion passes.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Now we'll move on to our information items. I'll hand it over to Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chair McAndrew. And again, I'm Tom Webster, Executive Vice President and Acting Chief Financial Officer. I will move through this presentation fairly quickly. So first, the highlights from our first quarter of FY26 and the financial results. We've continued to see ridership and revenue growth through the first quarter. Of course, we implemented our Better Bus Network redesign at the end of June, and so this was really the first full quarter of the new service. We made some rail service improvements again at the end of June. In the capital program, a few highlights: continued reinvestment in the metro system with bus deliveries starting, some continued progress in metro rail infrastructure and equipment, as well as paratransit vehicles, and spent much of the last quarter getting ready for the launch of Tap Ride Go on bus, which happened earlier this week. The really good news here, again, passenger and parking revenue continue to grow. They're up 25 million compared to the first quarter of last year. Metro Rail passenger revenue increased by 22 million above last year, and almost 6 million trips. A big driver of that, of course, has been federal employees riding the system. And we've seen, as we mentioned in a previous meeting, pretty rapid growth in the number of bus customers that are tapping and paying on bus, and seeing both an increase in paid ridership and an increase in revenue. Total revenue was 21 million above our budget forecast during the first quarter. Just highlighting here a couple of our fare modernization, fare policy topics. So we did quite a bit of outreach with DC students as part of the Kids Ride Free program in the district, and we're seeing some results of both that outreach, working with the schools, and some of our technology improvements there. We've got much higher rates of Kids Ride Free participants tapping on bus and rail, and an increasing number of students who are moving their Kids Ride Free Smart Trip card to their mobile phone, which is great because it's much less likely to be lost when it's attached to a phone. And then Tap Ride and Go, since launching on rail, we've continued to see increasing utilization, very strong on weekends, but really all days of week. And in the first quarter, we saw 10 million of fare revenue come in through that path. So it is working, and more and more customers are using it. We did have a short-term impact to ridership and revenue as a result of the federal shutdown that's now ended. I mentioned earlier a big part of, or a significant part of our growth in ridership over the past year or so has been from federal employees. So when the shutdown occurred, federal employees took less trips, and we saw less ridership and less revenue as a result. We estimate that the impact of that was about 5 million, and of course that's a one-time thing. It's over now, but we built in that that impact into our forecast for the remainder of the year. Next, want to alert the board here that we are definitely seeing some expense pressures across a number of our budget and operations categories here. I'll touch on a couple. First, we have seen increasing rates for paratransit and increasing ridership, particularly on the Abilities Ride program. So we are above forecast through the first quarter and expect that to continue through the year. There's also considerable pressure in the energy and electricity markets. And we're starting to see both, because we are such a large user of energy and electricity in particular, as there are market pressures, that impacts our budget and expense relative to what we projected. So again, an impact in the first quarter, and we expect that to continue through the fiscal year and likely into next. And then on pension and healthcare expenses, we have required contributions that are built into the budget and are made throughout the year. They are higher than we anticipated when we formulated the budget last year. So again, something we're going to have to manage through the remainder of this fiscal year and then going into next. Bottom line for the quarter is we're favorable to budget by about $2 million, which results in us transferring less preventive maintenance expenses to capital funding in the quarter by $2 million. So that savings appears in that category. You can see that here. Again, the results for the first quarter resulting in a $2 million savings and lower preventive maintenance transfer. So we're one quarter now 1 quarter and a month and a half through the fiscal year. That's enough time for us to start to formulate a year-end forecast. So we're displaying that here. I'll note we are projecting revenue to be quite a bit above budget, so $632 million. And again, that already factors in the impacts of the federal shutdown, continued ridership and revenue growth. On expenses, factoring in many of those things that I just mentioned of cost pressures, as well as actions we're taking now to manage expenses in other ways and accelerate some of our efficiency and modernization efforts to try to continue to manage costs. We're anticipating a year-end forecast of $2,650 million. With all of that, that increased revenue covers the forecasted increased expense, and we are projecting that cost management and that revenue will allow us to transfer less preventive maintenance to the capital funding at the end of the year. Right now, projecting $25 million savings, which will allow us to reinvest that capacity back into the capital program. Speaking of the capital program, we invested about $425 million through the CIP in the first quarter. We are revising our working forecast for the remainder of the year for a few reasons. One, we're continuing to take action to manage the delivery of the program more effectively and efficiently. So we have some cost reductions that we're factoring in as a result of that. And there are also a number of schedule changes, some delays, and some market factors that are changing our expenditure-based forecast for the fiscal year and frankly for the next 6. So we're updating the forecast to be $1.9 billion for the fiscal year. To the extent that the reductions in the forecast are actual cost savings, that allows us to reinvest through the capital program in future years. To the extent that there are schedule changes, that just updates the out years of the program for those particular projects. Just a very quick reminder and confirmation of our federal or our FY26 capital funding. So we put the budget together with assumptions about what will be available from jurisdictional contributions, from dedicated funding, and from federal grant sources. Pleased to report that we're basically on track with what we forecasted from a funding standpoint, and the numbers are here to confirm that. Anticipating a question, we did not have a significant impact on cash flow or grant reimbursements during the federal shutdown. A month or so ago, we previewed that we'd be bringing some key investment snapshots to the board each quarter as part of this report. This report includes brief updates or 2-page updates on the 8000 series railcar acquisition, Bladensburg Bus Garage, and bus vehicles. I will just briefly step through these. We are, of course, acquiring 8000 series railcars. That project is underway. We have experienced some schedule delays, as was reported out, I believe, back over the summer to the committee. Still working through with our vendor Hitachi on managing that schedule and very proactively meeting with their leadership team to resolve issues as they come up. But again, here's the schedule as it stands today, as well as some of our key risks. On Bladensburg Bus Garage, so we have been working for some time to replace what was an obsolete collection of facilities at Bladensburg. The operating functions are now in service at the facility. We have remaining construction work related to gantries, parking lots, parking garages, and that activity continues. Again, the schedule, we anticipate project to be substantially complete in the summer of 2028 with closeout in early 29. We did face a fairly significant challenge with this project from a cost escalation, inflation, and complexity standpoint related to charging equipment and infrastructure. So we're looking at a potential increase in the range of $150 million as a result of some value engineering work, revisiting of the zero emission bus strategy at this location. We were able to contain that cost increase down to 48 million rather than 150, and are now moving forward with the project as it's been re-scoped and reestablished here. So the upcoming CIP presentation will include an update to the total project cost estimate for Bladensburg to factor in this increase. And then finally, with bus vehicles, I mentioned earlier, we're anticipating now finally taking some deliveries of buses. We've received a few so far this fiscal year, with more deliveries and then a ramp up of bus vehicle deliveries in the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter of this year. We have not received a lot of buses as a result of some of the challenges in the market for the past few years. So we have a built up demand here for replacement buses that will start meeting in later this fiscal year. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Hats off to the team. Good quarter. Some headwinds at the federal level. But on this last bit, Tom, I'll say thank you as an interest in making sure that we do a little bit of a deeper dive on the capital program, especially on those larger programs that are critically important, or projects, making sure that we have eyes wide open as we move through those decisions is important. So appreciate it. I will open for any questions or discussion.
Just one question.
Yes.
Actually, on the current slide, we've talked a couple times about the work that's going on both through DMV Moves and with APTA about standardizing bus requirements. I'm curious as to how it's all going and what the timeline is.
It is ongoing. There have been a number of efforts to try to unify the industry, as you mentioned, with APTA and others. We could probably provide a fuller update offline or in a follow-up.
That sounds great.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and go on. Again, appreciate the brevity here, but and there's a lot to unpack, but I think if you could hit just the high notes quickly on what to expect and ultimately advertise to our partners in the room. No slides, just summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be very brief here. So what this presentation does is previews our proposed FY27 operating budget as well as our 6-year CIP. A few things to note: we have again, factored in some of the cost pressures that I just reviewed in the quarterly update into our outlook. We have continued to build on multi-year forecasting in our approach to building the operating budget. So the last couple of years, we've had the budget year and a one-year forecast. We're beginning now in this presentation and in the future to have the budget year and two-year forecasts, along with potential service improvement concepts that align with that three-year period. So the proposed budget next month will likely include some Metro bus service improvements and some Metro rail service improvements. And then essentially we're previewing what might come in fiscal 28 and fiscal 29, of course, subject to the availability of both money and other resources to deliver on that service. In the capital program, we are preparing essentially two different six-year CIP proposals. One that assumes that we are living with existing resources and managing what is essentially our debt capacity limit being reached in the FY28, FY29 timeframe. And then a scenario that assumes the DMV moves recommended $460 million indexed and bondable that gets added to the program in the out years of the CIP. And so this presentation includes some examples of things that would be impacted if the resources are not available, including escalators, buses, as well as our 8000 series option 1. Presentation also previews the Red Line rail modernization inclusion in the six-year CIP, or in this proposed six-year CIP. And essentially we've done a lot of the cost reduction and management efforts around the program to identify as much resource as we could to make the local share part of the six-year CIP for the Red Line rail modernization program. That would then be used to leverage potential federal grant opportunities. So that again will be featured in the budget proposal next month. I think with that I'll stop.
That was an excellent summary. And for all of our partners in the room and those online, appreciate your support here. The materials that Tom so expertly walked through right there in quick, rapid speed are accessible online. And also for the joint development presentation that we discussed a short bit earlier. I'll say a few items, and we'll have opportunity for further dialogue in December and the months and weeks and months ahead thereafter. It seems to me, there's a couple key trade-off decisions that are presented, and they're trade-off decisions that we'll work through. One is, will the DMV Moves funds show up or not? And if they don't, how will we manage and what that could look like, which I think is healthy. It's a healthy discussion, healthy debate for us. But within that, there's things that appear to be kind of near-term decisions with or without the DMV Moves discussion. And one is we are projecting to do well from a ridership and a revenue perspective. What do we do with those funds is important. As presented, there's opportunities to reinvest that in enhanced service. That's a decision, and there's different discussions that we can make thereafter. But from better rail service to better bus service, it's an opportunity. I think on the other side that I saw that was kind of interesting was without the additional funds, we've got a likely trade-off decision coming our way in terms of red line signals or option 1 on the 8Ks that we'll have to have a ample discussion and dialogue through the budget cycle. Again, if the DMV Moves funds don't show up, then we'll have that opportunity for a discussion in terms of a live item for this year's budget. But I thought it was a truly impressive deck and setting us up for a good conversation. But with that, I'll pause. No questions from me. Any questions or discussion from folks? Yes, Dr. Lowe.
Yeah, I think I first off encourage everyone to check this out, because I think that in terms of the proposed operating budget, that there are some really exciting, I mean, okay, they're reasonably modest, but there are some really thoughtful, that's the right word, service proposals, both for the coming fiscal year and the team is starting to think about service planning in a multi-year way. And the proposals for future fiscal years are also, I think, very thoughtful and will really resonate with the people who are using the system every day, where the pain points are and where the highest ROI opportunities to improve are. So it's really worth looking at the operating budget proposal in detail. In terms of the capital program, there is a big gulf in between CIP-A and CIP-B. And it's probably not a binary trade-off. So I think we have a lot of work to do in understanding the two proposals and navigating to whether there's even like a third place that we could potentially end up. I know it's going to be a lot of work to think through all this, and it's going to be very intensive. But I think that there's a strong potential case for the ROI of investing more. And so we have to be prepared to do that work. Let's go.
Perfect. Anyone else? All right. Hearing none, appreciate your time, participation, and support. As Dr. Lowe said, there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we're confident you guys are up to it. So thank you. And with that, thank you, everyone, for some very good discussions. With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned. We're going to take a very quick 2-minute hiatus, and we will see everybody back here shortly.
Good afternoon. I'm Valerie Santos, Chair of the Metro Board. Thank you for being here today, and thank you all for your patience. I know, as my colleague referenced, we've had a number of extended conversations this morning, so we're running delayed. Sorry. We'll begin with the approval of the agenda. I would like to consider the agenda approved as presented with one very minor change, which is we're postponing the employee spotlight till our next session. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. We have 4 sets of minutes for approval, which is October 9 board meeting, October 9 executive session, October 27 executive session, November 6 executive session. And I would like to consider these minutes approved as presented. Any objections? Okay. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We will quickly also go to public comment and reports by our advisory bodies. I'll first turn over the floor to anyone who's here in person that is signed up. I have a few names here. So Adrienne, and please forgive me if I mispronounce your names, Adrienne Hurst. And then after that, it'll be Oliver Marino.
Thank you. I'm here to call for the end of the dangerous collaboration between local law enforcement, including Metro Transit Police, with federal officers. I've seen crowds of federal agents and local police at several transit stops since August. But I will speak to the events of October 29th at the Georgia Petworth stop, less than a block away from my home. It was impossible for one person to witness all of the police actions during those 2 hours in the middle of the day. I will share what I saw, even though I regret speaking about other people's experiences. At least 20 Metro Transit Police and federal law enforcement swarmed both northbound and southbound bus stops. MPT vehicles and plainclothes officers were also present. At least twice, I saw them board the bus and ride along. Other times, they would board the buses and pull people off, accusing them of fare evasion, though it's unclear how they knew this. Instead of giving tickets and letting people leave, they would hold them. People stayed calm, but several times the situation escalated with law enforcement cornering people. One woman was pulled off a northbound bus, accused of using a child's Metro card. At least 4 police cornered her, telling her what they accused her of. When she attempted to walk away, they tackled her and accused her of assaulting an officer, which she did not do. They handcuffed her and put her in the vehicle and took her. On the southbound side, another set of police and feds pulled someone off the bus who had already been on the bus. I don't know what they accused him of because he was already riding. At one point, they grabbed him and slammed him against the bus stop plexiglass, although he was not being aggressive toward them. All people arrested had brown skin. One of the things that I remember from that day is the white federal officers overseeing the horrifying actions of mostly Black local law enforcement, knowing the historical context of that to slavery. Every person I saw pulled off buses were Black or brown, and I demand an end to this dangerous collaboration among agencies in the so-called Beautiful Task Force. Bus fares are being used to racially profile people, and I call for the end of both.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Oliver Marino?
Good morning. My name is Oliver Merino. I live in Alexandria. I work in DC. I'm an immigrant and I ride the metro every week. As you know, we have seen immigration-related arrests across the DMV, increased ICE and federal agent presence in the streets and in and around metro and buses. We've also seen CBP and ICE advertisement in metro stations and buses. Why? If we know that these agencies are trampling on people's constitutional rights, why are they being allowed to advertise on WMATA's property? What message are you sending to our immigrant community? What is WMATA doing to ensure the safety of our immigrant community that ride the metro and buses every day? How many immigration-related arrests have happened in and around the facilities? We need transparency and a clear statement from WMATA that ICE and other federal agents are not welcome in public transit. As ICE and federal agents continue to abduct our community members, we call on WMATA to be clear that this type of behavior, this type of action will not be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next, I see Tanya Boz-Golash.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Golash Boza. I'm a Ward 4 resident, and I've been riding the bus for as long as I can remember. I grew up taking the E2 and the E4 from 4th and Kennedy to Lafayette Elementary School. In the 1980s, it was normal and safe for a child to ride metro buses alone. Today, that sense of safety has eroded. Across the city, parents are afraid to rely on public transit or to let their children use it. Black parents worry their children could be stopped or questioned as a dozen or more armed agents are stationed at Fort Totten, Rhode Island, Petworth, and other metro stations. Latino parents fear ICE could apprehend their children on the way to school or work, or even be pulled off of buses or trains. Just 2 weeks ago, I witnessed a Latino man walking towards a bus stop on 16th Street. Several ICE agents jumped out of unmarked vehicles and detained him, a father, a worker, a metro bus rider, just trying to get to work. Last week, armed federal agents boarded buses at Fort Totten for fare enforcement. Every encounter with an armed agent increases the risk of harm, particularly for Black youth. In the last week, 3 Black people have been killed by local and federal police. That is more than MPD killed in all of 2024. Any encounter with a federal agent poses a risk of deportation for immigrants. Last month, 1,200 people were deported from DC, and that is more than the entire number deported in all of 2024. Metro's vision is to be the region's trusted way to move people safely and sustainably. People do not feel safe on Metro due to this collaboration with ICE and with federal agents. I'm here to ask the board to take 3 steps. End the use of armed federal agents for fare evasion, end all collaboration between Metro Transit and ICE, and make Metro bus service free. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next is Ms. Karina Martinez.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. My name is Karina Martinez. I am also an immigrant, and it has been about 3 months now since I've stopped using Metro and bus stops because I am afraid of being abducted for the way that I look. I'm here today representing Movimiento Migrante DC. Our organization works with several community members of the immigrant community of the diaspora that lives in Washington, DC. And I'm here to say that right now we see Metro as an unsafe environment where we have seen alphabet of federal agencies abducting, criminalizing, harassing, brutalizing our community members, including ATF, IRS, FBI, HSI, and there's I think that people are leaning into the misinformation that or lack of information in our community saying that ICE is not on Metro. But let us be clear, all federal agencies are deputized to assist in immigration-related arrests. And change comes at the hands of each individual. An ICE arrest does not stop once people are arrested here. They're taken to Chantilly, they're taken to Riverside, then they are taken to detention centers where we immigrants are being treated like animals, where we immigrants are having to go through things. This past Sunday, I had a mother pass out in my arms, faint in my arms, as she saw her son be abducted by federal agencies along with MPD. Our city leaders have failed us, and I hope that it is WMATA board who steps up and protects our community, because if you do not, we will be calling for all immigrants to stop using all WMATA access, buses and Metro from across the DMV. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Christina Murdoch. Mr. Mike Golash.
In this month's Fund Annual Report, it is noted that some of the headwinds affecting Metro's finances are absenteeism and unscheduled leave. To deal with these issues, we must look at the personnel policies of the authority. Current policies are not flexible enough to stabilize the workforce and reduce the amount of required overtime. I am tired of waiting many mornings for the bus on 16th Street and seeing that bus will not be arriving because of the availability of operators. When a third of the workforce has attendance problems, there is a policy problem. First Metro was too quick to terminate workers for minor violations. Given that I've been around here for nearly 50 years, many people call me to ask for help. Last week, a woman had been terminated in March for a cell phone violation call. She was working a run to the Pentagon when Trump was having an event there. There was a detour. She unloaded her bus and followed the detour. It didn't work. She got instructions from a police officer, another dead end. She took out her cell phone and got directions from Google. When she arrived at the garage, management asked her about her being late. She explained what had happened. They pulled the tape and saw her using the cell phone and terminated her. Another operator called me. His bus had mechanical trouble. The bus phone was not working. He stepped off the bus, took his phone out of his pocket and called Central. Management viewed the tape and saw him talking his cell phone out of his pocket and terminated him. Work schedules have to be more flexible. Management has to be willing to work with operators who have childcare issues, car problems, or family illness. 20 years ago, a train operator fell asleep while his train was on hold outside a station. It rolled back and did $2 million of damage. He had worked 80 hours that week. Dan Taglioni let him become a station manager. I saw him recently. He is a station manager supervisor now. Carissa Snowden had 4 accidents in her beginning of her career. She was a good worker, but could not drive well. Sherman Ramley recognized her strength and made her a station manager. She eventually became a train operator, a rail training instructor. She retired about a year ago after 27 years of service. We have to treat our workforce better. We will get better results. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tyler Sylvester?
Firstly, thank you for allowing us to testify today. It's vitally important that the stories that we're sharing get attention and the perpetrators of the abuses across DC are brought to justice. With that said, I want to share with you my firsthand account of the ongoing collaboration between transit police and the federal agents terrorizing our communities. On the 23rd of October, I was walking past Judiciary Square carrying my lunch back to the office. On my way, I noticed a crowd of federal agents from various agencies, Park Police, FBI, IRS, and Homeland Security, along with others who did not have agency identifiers, gathered with National Guardsmen. Instinctively, I took out my phone and started recording, expecting another brutal abduction of one of our community members. Noticing no activity, I redirected my energy towards heckling these agents for a minute or two, then turned to go about my business and return to work. It was then when multiple agents from multiple agencies, joined by Metro Transit Police, tackled me from behind and brought me to the ground. As I was brought to the ground and handcuffs were forced onto me, the agents, and Transit Police specifically, threatened to break my bones and told me that they were taking me to Donald Trump. A statement, even in that moment, that was so comical, I almost laughed. These Transit Police officers repeatedly told me that my First Amendment rights no longer mattered. I want to pause for a moment and let that statement linger. My First Amendment rights no longer mattered. They proceeded to slam me up against the Transit Police squad car and violently search my person, cutting my backpack off of me, throwing my things to the ground with what I could only describe as the intent to damage them. At no point was I read my Miranda rights. I will repeat that. At no point was I read my Miranda rights. Our First Amendment rights did not matter. Once I was finally brought to the station at 101 M Street Southwest, it was explained to me that I was being charged with disorderly conduct and I should expect to be out shortly. I suppose, in comparison to others, it was a relatively short period of time, but I was held in the cell alone without a water fountain for several hours, and after numerous requests, only after numerous requests was I given a phone call. But one thing kept ringing in my ears while I was incarcerated: your First Amendment rights do not matter. I suppose this fear is all supposed to be part of the point. They want to silence us, all of us, the hecklers, the transit riders, the neighborhood defenders, and the little old ladies who just rush out with only whistles. But we're fighting back against this terror, and we have to, because like the Transit Police said, our First Amendment rights no longer matter.
Thank you. Amy Gaito?
Good afternoon. I'm going to start with a story from October 3rd, when a Latina mother was waiting for the train in the Noma metro station when she dropped her child's medicine on the tracks. Instinctively, she dumped down on the tracks to retrieve it, and when she got back onto the platform, a WMATA employee with a safety vest approached her, presumably to give her a citation. Suddenly, though, 30 Metro Transit police officers swarmed the station and dramatically took her into custody, taking her away in a Metro Transit vehicle separate from her 2 toddlers that were on the scene. We later found out that this woman was turned over to ICE agents while in MTPD custody. It's extremely concerning that a minor incident like this would result in deportation, and I'd like to demand full transparency from WMATA about what happened to this woman when she was in MTPD custody, and how Metro Transit Police continued to collaborate and share information with immigration enforcement. You've also heard from my colleagues today about numerous accounts of the constant federal law enforcement at WMATA Metro and bus stations. This presence is terrorizing Black and brown Washingtonians, and I'm particularly concerned about the impact it's having on Black youth. My friend that teaches at DC Latin High School recently told me about a high school student who, while in his uniform on his way to school, was arrested by MTPD and unspecified federal police officers getting off the bus, presumably for fare evasion. The scared child involved in this incident ran away from officers and was chased by FBI agents on his way to school. You can only imagine what this story is doing to his fellow classmates, how scared they must feel, most of whom pass through Fort Taunton Station on their way to school, which is filled with FBI, IRS, and other federal police agents on a nearly daily basis. The presumption that these kids will commit a crime, even for something as simple as not paying a $2.25 fare, and need to be surveilled and persecuted on their way to school is racial profiling, and we need to do better for our kids. People in this city are terrified to use public transit, a resource that is so desperately needed amidst cuts to social programs, so I'm imploring WMATA to end collaboration with federal law enforcement agencies immediately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We did not receive any other comments in advance of this meeting, so that concludes the public comment period. And thank you to all of you who provide very thoughtful comments today. Our advisory bodies, both reports have been received, so we will move on to the chair's report. First, I would like to thank everyone who participated in the public engagement process for the Strategic Transformation Plan, or SDP. Since the adoption of the original plan in 2023, Metro has made significant progress on many of its goals, and this refresh is designed to reflect the progress and reset our ambitions for the next few years. It's not just a check-the-box update. The goal is to align our strategy with the evolving needs of our riders, employees, and the region. Metro conducted more than 40 interviews, held multiple town halls, and engaged with community groups, regional partners, and transit peers to inform this refresh. And this refresh comes at a critical juncture. Metro is delivering on its original commitments, but the region is also changing. Ridership is recovering, budgets are under pressure all around, and our long-term funding model must be sustainable. So by aligning our strategic goals with this funding and with deeper regional partnership, we can make smarter investments in service, infrastructure, and people that benefit the entire region. We look forward to finalizing the adoption of that plan next month. Speaking of funding, and another critical development this past week, our board, as well as the COG board, jointly endorsed a plan to provide new annual capital funding for Metro, which would start in fiscal year 2028. The regional commitment is a powerful signal that Metro and the region are working together toward a long-term sustainable vision for transit, one that supports modernization, safety, and reliability. On a totally different note, I'd like to highlight that November is Native American Heritage Month, a time to honor the history, cultures, continuing contributions of Native and Indigenous peoples across the United States. This month provides an opportunity to reflect on the rich traditions of the more than 570 federally recognized tribes and many Indigenous communities whose stewardship of this land long predates our nation. This month encourages us all to learn more about Indigenous traditions, languages, and perspectives. Whether through learning, reflection, or engagement with our local organizations, we can help honor and preserve Indigenous history and culture. I'd also like to remind everyone that there will be only one public meeting day next month, which is December 11. And before I turn over, there's additional business to come before the board for a couple of my colleagues. Just a brief comment, which is that as our organization continues to evolve, our board remains focused on strengthening our financial, administrative, and oversight practices, along with our internal controls that support them. And central to this commitment is ensuring that our processes and our governance framework uphold the highest standards of transparency, accountability, and operational integrity. So the board intends to affirm our responsibilities, our oversight responsibilities, in terms of our role as fiduciaries, and particularly, as has been mentioned, we want to ensure confidence in our institution as we're seeking to raise additional funding for sustainable funding for Metro in the future, that we can ensure the confidence of our jurisdictional partners, funders, and stakeholders that the board is upholding our responsibilities. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Director McAndrew.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move to amend Resolution 2021-07, Amendment to Procurement Procedures Manual as follows. Add two new whereas clauses as follows. Whereas the Board of Directors is committed to continuing to improve the authority's finance and administration functions, including procurement, grants, management, budgeting, reporting, and risk management. And whereas as part of this commitment, the board desires to strengthen the authority's commitment to full and open competition and to limit exceptions to this requirement. I further move to add a new resolved clause as follows. Resolved that section 201B of the procurement guiding principles, attachment A, is deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. General manager and chief executive officer, except for new procurements in the amount of 15 million or greater, sole source contracts in the amount of 500,000 or greater, and change orders or modifications to existing contracts where the cumulative amount for the current and all prior modifications against the contract exceeds 1 million or 10% of the original contract award amount, whichever is greater, the GM and CEO is delegated contracting authority. For the procurement actions accepted above, the GM and CEO shall bring such procurement actions to the Finance and Capital Committee of the Board for concurrence, only after which the GM and CEO shall have a contracting authority to issue a contract award or a change order modification. For procurements within the GM and CEO's contracting authority, the GM and CEO is authorized to initiate, award, and modify procurements consistent with the approved authority operating and multi-year capital budgets, and is responsible for delegating contracting officer authority to qualified employees of the authority and authorizing the redelegation of authority to other qualified employees of the authority. Approving employee standards of conduct, approving authority procurement and related policies and procedures that augment board procurement policy, but only as authorized by the board or this procurement policy, the initiation of procurement actions and awarding contracts in emergency situations, and reporting sole source and emergency contracts to the board. The GM and CEO is also responsible for establishing a system for the timely review and approval of procurement actions, establishing policies and procedures for special agreements, and implementing procurement policies and procedures. I further move that this amendment shall be effective immediately.
Thank you, Director McAndrew. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Is there any discussion? I will ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair Santos?
Aye.
Vice Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew?
Aye.
Alternate Director Rye?
Aye.
Director Lowe?
Aye.
Director Alcorn? Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. I would now like to turn it over to my colleague, Director Smedberg, for comment.
I'm sorry.
Director Smedberg, are you
Oh.
making the motion?
Oh, yes. Oh, I thought you said
please.
comment.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Yes, I'd like to move that the board be aware that we'll be offering an amendment to Resolution 2007-09, provisions to the Personnel Policies and Procedures Manual. I move to amend the Resolution 2007-09, revisions to the Personnel Policies and Procedural Manuals as follows. Add a new whereas clause as follows. Whereas currently there are a number of executive and senior management vacancies, and the Board of Directors desires to help contribute to organizational and financial stability of the authority. I further move to add a new resolve clause as follows. Resolved that the Executive Committee of the Board of Directors shall have approval authority for the appointment and removal of all executive positions and/or functions that directly report to the General Manager and the Chief Executive Officer on the effective date of this motion, except for the Chief of Staff, as well as the Chief Procurement Officer or the highest ranking official having procurement authority, and the head of the Office of Government Relations or equivalent position. And be it further, I further move that this amendment shall be effective immediately and shall control over any conflicting language in any prior resolution or motion, including Resolution 2012-31.
Thank you, Director Smedberg. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Ryan. Any discussion? I will ask Ms. Ellison to call the vote.
Chair Santos?
Aye.
Vice Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew?
Aye.
Alternate Director Rye?
Aye.
Director Lowe?
Aye.
Director Alcorn? Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. That does conclude my report, and I will now turn the floor over to our general manager for his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing to report is I just want to really thank the staff for their ongoing amazing efforts at this institution and all the great work they do, and wish them a happy Thanksgiving. Nothing else to report.
Thank you. Any questions before I turn it over to Chair McAndrew for the Finance and Capital Committee report? We're doing the authors, yeah.
The following item is referred to the board at this morning's Finance and Capital Committee meeting. Authorizations for public hearings on Braddock Road and North Bethesda stations and approval to issue joint development solicitation for Braddock Road. Staff sought approval to conduct compact public hearings and propose changes to Metro's facilities at the Braddock Road and North Bethesda Metro stations to allow for future joint development projects. Additionally, staff sought approval to issue a joint development solicitation for Braddock Road. Madam Chair, I move approval.
Thank you, Director McAndrew. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll ask Ms. Ellison to please call the vote.
Chair Santos?
Aye.
Vice Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew?
Aye.
Alternate Director Rye?
Aye.
Director Lowe?
Aye.
Director Alcorn? Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. We have one item on the board's consent agenda today, which is, so I would like to move approval of the following, which is authorization of an MOU for a reimbursable agreement to expand clear lanes in Montgomery County, Maryland. Staff requests board approval for the general manager or his designee to negotiate and execute a reimbursable agreement with Montgomery County to fully fund the operational costs of expanding clear lanes into Montgomery County. Clear Lanes is a program of automated enforcement of dedicated bus lanes and bus stop zones that is jointly administered by Metro and participating jurisdictions. I move approval. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director McAndrew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This item is approved. Do any of the jurisdictions want to add an additional report? Okay. With no further business to come before the board, we stand adjourned. Thank you for joining us today, and we will now move to board executive session. In accordance with the bylaws, I, Valerie Santos, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government. B, litigation, investigations, or other legal matters requiring provision of legal service or consultation with counsel and staff. D, contractual or other matters involving confidential or proprietary concerns or other investment of public funds where discussion in public would adversely affect the financial interests of WMATA. G, disposition of WMATA property or acquisition of real property for WMATA purposes where discussion in public would adversely affect WMATA's negotiating or bargaining position. Is there a second? Thanks, Director Smedberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.